Hello and welcome back. My name's Rocky, and here we are in a new 6-day transit cycle. We're on the second day of a 6-day transit, and I'm going to spend a little bit of time sharing my reflections and musings on the energies that we're working with this week, and as always, how you can kind of optimize your own flow to align with and work with these energies in a way that can be most advantageous to you. Before I do that, I want to mention that I've recently launched a new website, rockyawakened.com, and a corresponding Instagram page to go along with it, where I'm sharing little clips and snippets of these transit updates, as well as additional information about human design. And through my website, you can also book time to work with me one-on-one. So human design really is meant to be a system that is designed to facilitate your own awakening on an individual basis, and really, as it's mentioned, as is a antidote to homogenization. We're going through a tremendously pivotal time in the evolution of humanity, where differentiation and our ability to really step into our most authentic expression is not only needed, but I think is going to be quite valuable for our survival and for our capacity to thrive in this new world. The old world is gone, and the new world is going to operate under very new modes of being, of operation, many of which are described and discussed in your unique human design strategy and authority. So while I try to keep these messages general enough for all of us to work with, know that the transits are going to affect all of us differently and personally, and understanding your own unique design is really pivotal in aligning with these energies in the best way possible. So if you're interested in spending some one-on-one time with me, my new website has various offers and ways that we can do that, from kind of a foundational long-form reading to kind of ongoing series to kind of short, quick voice note sessions, and even little transit check-ins, so we can see how the energies at play might be affecting you on an individual level. So again, rockyawakened.com can give you all that information. And please feel free to share that with anybody that you know and love who may value and benefit from this wisdom. It really is clear to me that now is the time for me to be sharing this with as many people as possible. And I think in large part, that's why I personally responded to human design and to all of you, essentially, coming into my world, was so that I could be at least a catalyst in helping you awaken and emerge as the unique, individualized expression of consciousness that you are as we move into this new paradigm. So I'm going to keep this relatively short, in that I don't want to talk too much about the themes that I've been sharing in the previous videos that are still ongoing, most notably this theme of disruption and crisis. It doesn't take a knowledge of human design to recognize how this is playing out in a global level, and I'm sure we've all been experiencing this in our own personal ways. Again, crisis and disruption really shows up when an old pattern is ready to be cleared, and it's time to find a new way of operating. This does thrust us into a sort of liminal space, or a void space, where the future can seem relatively unclear. Our steps forward can also seem somewhat murky, and knowing how to navigate this kind of transitional time while also kind of watching the intensity of the movie that we're all collectively contributing to and observing takes practice, and it takes a tremendously strong constitution to be able to stay centered in the midst of all of it. So the good news is, we've had 4 different gates highlighting the gate of crisis, 2 of which have been in retrograde for a while, Mercury and Venus. Mercury has gone direct, so you might be noticing a little bit more kind of mental clarity showing up as these energies are starting to move forward. And Venus will be going direct this weekend. Of course, once a planet goes direct, it still has to kind of move back through the energies that it retrograded through. We call that the shadow of the retrograde. So we have, still some time before we'll start to really feel this forward momentum, but at least you might be feeling a little bit less of that kind of regressive pulling back energy. It's almost like that rubber band getting pulled back, and now it's been released and it's starting its trajectory forward. So in terms of mental clarity, in terms of perhaps confusion and discord that you might have been experiencing in your personal relationships, you can expect some of that to start to clear up, which of course might bring with it the need to let go of some of those relationships or amend your agreements within them, so that we can step into the next energy that these gates will be highlighting, along with Neptune, which is the gate of service, the gate of spirit, the gate of unconditional love. As I mentioned last week, I've been noticing a lot of people really finding an increased or renewed curiosity around spirituality and ways that they can kind of leverage their own unique gifts in service of something greater than themselves, myself included. It's one of the reasons why I created this Telegram channel and why I've been, I think, inspired and motivated to kind of reawaken not just my interest in human design, but my commitment to sharing it with as many people as possible. It no longer feels just, like it's about me wanting to share something I love, but it's clear to me that this is something that this time really calls for. And so I appreciate all of you being here. So yesterday, the sun moved from the gate of Shop, which we had for the last 6 days, into the gate 42, which is called the gate of growth, sometimes called the gate of increase. And in quantum design, it's called the gate of conclusion. So this is a sacral gate, meaning it's a gate that responds, and it responds specifically to finishing things. There's a couple different ways that we can interpret this energy, or a couple different ways that I interpret this energy, and I want to kind of share what that might look like from the kind of the more mundane to perhaps the more mystical or even more energetic. So, put quite simply, it's hard to grow and to evolve and to have a new beginning in something if we still have unfinished business kind of pulling us or keeping us stuck in the past. We've been all experiencing and talking a lot about this new beginning that we're having, but along with that, we're also watching the dismantling of the old. And, to the extent that we have attachment to the way things used to be, or to stories about who we are or what we're capable of or what holds us back or what limits us, some of those stories kind of can keep us feeling stuck and can keep us from moving forward. So one of the most important things I think that we all need to be willing to wrap up and finish, not just this week, but certainly more broadly during this season, is the story of what was, the story of who we've been, the story of how we got here. In a more, let's say, a higher elevated place, this is really a gate that's about celebration and about detachment. So celebration means, I'm proud of who I am. I'm proud of the journey I've been on. I'm proud and grateful for the relationships that have come into my life. And to the extent that it's time to let go of those relationships, I don't let go, or those identities or those stories, I don't let go of them and push them out of my life, but I let go of them from a place of celebration for the lessons, for the experiences, and for the growth that was enacted through those cycles. So this is cyclical energy. It's energy that completes when it's time for the cycle to renew, but it's also an energy that we can sometimes feel stuck in if we are not correctly following our human design strategy and authority. Meaning, if you are making mental decisions and starting projects or entering into relationships that are not authority led, it can be very difficult sometimes to get out of those relationships or to finish those projects or to end those cycles because they were not entered into correctly. So to the extent that you've been kind of feeling that kind of lingering sense that you have a lot of unfinished business, this is the week to wrap that up. Now that can look like, quite literally or quite practically, finishing those projects, doing some spring cleaning, opening that mail that's been sitting around for a while, like paying those bills, getting rid of those clothes that you don't use anymore, finishing up those projects that you've been saying for a long time were outstanding. But it can also look like letting them go completely if they were never correct in the first place. And what I mean by that is sometimes we can get stuck trying to finish something that really we don't need to finish. We really just need to be done with investing our time and energy into something that's not working. Now, this can be tricky because just because something has not turned out the way we expected doesn't mean that we want to quit altogether. But again, your unique strategy and your unique human design authority can help you discern what it's time to be done with, what chapters it's time to close, what projects it's time to let go or to finish, so that you can clear space to have a new beginning. The harmonic to the gate 42 is the gate 53, which is the gate of starting things, the root gate. So we usually feel the drive to have a new beginning, but we facilitate that by embracing the conclusion of that which no longer, needs our attention or is finished. So if you don't have anything that comes to mind or that you are responding to as something in need of kind of closing or wrapping up, let this be your invitation to really celebrate all that you've done, all that you've been, all the experiences you've moved through, those relationships that perhaps you view as being failed relationships because they didn't continue in the way that you expected, don't necessarily need that energy to wrap up healthily, but rather an energy of celebration and an energy of pride in what you learned and what you experienced and who you became as a result of all of those experiences. So gate 42, the gate of completion, is a sacral gate, meaning it's one that is not a mental gate. We don't have to decide what we're going to finish. It's something that we will likely respond to. So if you are a generator, you're going to have this energy kind of in a strong sense. You might find yourself wanting to wrap up some of those projects, or really just not only bring things to completion, but check those things off your list. For example, if I want a seed to grow, if I want to grow a tree, I have to plant the seed, but then each day I need to finish the task of watering, or whatever the timeline is, watering that plant so that it can grow. I don't have to make it grow, but I do need to finish the task of tending to that at a reasonable pace so that growth can be facilitated. And again, this is not just about finishing tasks, and it's not just about closure. It's also about detachment. It's about being willing to let go. It's about being willing to turn the page and say, okay, that was then, this is now. And, I recognize the value of that cycle that I moved through, and I no longer need to hold on to it, but I can maintain and retain the skills that I learned, the experiences that I honed and gathered, and the wisdom that came from that. So again, personally, we're experiencing this. This is a collective energy, and it doesn't take too much pondering, I guess, to recognize how at a collective level we are watching a lot of cycles end, and that can be scary as well. We can't go backwards; we can only move forwards. And while we are still in this time of uncertainty, it can be difficult to let go of things when we don't know what's coming next, especially for those of you that are fourth lines. And so letting something go, closing a chapter, is really about making space for the next right step to drop in, and keeping the faith that that step will show up when we're well rested, when we have room, and when we are aligned with our value and in our integrity. The Earth this week is highlighting the gate 32, which is a splenic gate. So it's an awareness gate. It's tribal energy, and sometimes called the gate of continuity or the gate of endurance. All splenic gates also carry with them the theme of fear, right? Because essentially the splenic awareness initially was used for our survival. And so this can be the fear of failure. Along with that, all the fear gates also bring with them sort of a heightened awareness, which is really the gift of these gates. The awareness of the gate 32 lets us know what needs to be invested in with some degree of preservation and continuity if we are to achieve success. And so the gate 32 is really saying, if there's something that you want to manifest, or there's something that you want to become, or something that you want to do, what can you do now to start laying the foundation for that to unfold? And how can you stick with it with continuity and endurance until, the manifestation occurs? For example, if I want to shift my relationship with my body and enhance my physique in some way, it's not going to do much benefit for me to stare at myself in the mirror and wish that I look different. It might be time to, get a gym membership and start the process of working out. And every day that I work out, I might not see the results in the mirror, but over time, with continuity, with endurance, those results can start to manifest. It's one of the reasons why I started this Telegram channel and the corresponding social media profiles. I have the goal of facilitating more human design sessions and readings and trainings and so on. But in order to respond and kind of follow my strategy, wait to respond, I need to create a space where people can find me and where people can recognize what I'm available for so that I can respond to those opportunities. And so it's taken a certain degree of continuity to show up every week and record these videos and post them, even if there's no engagement, even if I don't get any feedback. I'm committed and devoted to that process because I know in time, as I continue to build this platform and build this library of content, that starts to, at the very least, signal to the universe and signal to the collective and to my community that I am ready, I'm available, I'm ready to respond. So the question to really ask yourself is, what needs to be done to lay the foundation so that you're ready for what it is you're wanting to unfold? On a global level, and certainly as it relates to kind of the political climate, there's a lot of agitation in the air right now, and certainly a lot of fear. And I hear people saying all the time, like, I think it's time for me to leave the country. Well, if you're thinking that might be something you want to do, this would be a really good week to make sure that, I'm not trying to be alarmist here, but that you have a valid passport, that you've done a little bit of research on where you might go, what that process might look like. Start to lay the foundation. If you're wanting to see a change, whether it's in your business, in your relationship, in your career, and even just in the world and how you operate in the world, you don't need to know exactly how it's going to all unfold, but there are things that need to be done to lay the foundation for that. The example that my teacher often gives is that if you have the dream of wanting to be a New York Times bestseller, you're going to need to have a book. And if you've never written a book before, you might need to start that process of even looking into what does that entail? Are there things that I have already started writing that maybe it's time for me to finish? Or maybe things that I've started that still are kind of lingering that it's time to kind of wrap up so that I can really start working on what's most important to me. As we move into these energies, the more subtle energies of Mercury and Venus and Neptune in the gate 25, the gate of service, the gate of spirit, I'm also recognizing in myself and in others that as we're being kind of called to step into serving something higher than ourselves, serving our community, serving each other, serving source, serving God, whatever it is that resonates with you, that might not necessarily fit with your current line of work or with what you find yourself doing on a daily basis. And so it can take quite a bit of courage, and it can sometimes take a leap of faith to say, you know what, even though I've done this for many, many years, there's this other thing that feels like it's connected to my true calling. And it doesn't mean you have to quit your job right now, but it might be time to kind of close a chapter on how you've seen yourself and how you've operated in the world, and begin to lay the foundation for what it is that you ultimately are being called to step into. So that's about all that I have for you this week. Again, just want to celebrate all of you and celebrate how far you've all come. The fact that you're here watching this video, that you've made it through all the experiences, trials, tribulations, and challenges that life has thrown at you. And you're still in a place, as evidenced by your participation here, of increased self-awareness, of growth, of increase in the ways that you embody and step into who you truly are, is something worth celebrating. And I believe in you. I believe in the projects and the vision that you all hold for yourself and for each other. And I celebrate, likewise, any steps, large or small, that you take this week to begin laying the foundation for those manifestations to unfold in the beautiful way that you all so much deserve. So I'm wishing you all a really wonderful week and a happy full moon tomorrow. Full moon energy will be highlighting these themes as well. And, the last thing I will actually share with you is that one of the things that human design also shares with us is that if we are not well rested, if we're burnt out, if we're struggling and hustling and trying to do too much, it can hinder, what life brings us to respond to, because life really says, oh, you're not ready yet, you're exhausted. So if this whole message has kind of felt a little overwhelming to you because you don't quite know what to do, and you don't really feel like you have the energy to invest in any of these things, let this also be your invitation to celebrate all the work you've done, celebrate how far you've come, and to close the chapter on hustling and close that chapter on, working really hard to prove your value, and give yourself some rest. Rest is an activity. Rest is something you can respond to and something you can do, and a really beautiful way to set the foundation and lay the foundation for you to be recharged, renewed, restored, and ready for what it is you truly deserve to step into your reality. So sending you all so much love. If you have any questions, comments, please feel free to pop them below, and I'll see you next time. Peace.